how could your parents not have been overly involved when you wound up at Harvard? My parents paid absolutely no attention to me, and I wound up at Syracuse, which makes sense to me.
My parents, so here's what I would say is the difference. For my parents, achievement was important, but it was just one facet of my life. Just as important was my sleep, my extracurricular activities, my relationship with my family, my extended family, my relationship with my friends. So achievement mattered, but it didn't define me and it didn't define my childhood the way it does so many kids today.
Mm. How did this happen to us? Because I think every parent out there listening knows exactly what we're talking about when we talk about this toxic culture of achievement. How did we get here? How did we get from our childhoods, which were normal and we played outside and we didn't have parents whose like every thought was of our academic achievement to today?
Yeah. So when I was growing up, and we're about the same age, in the 70s and early 80s, life was generally more affordable. Housing was more affordable. Healthcare was more affordable. Higher education was more affordable. Food was more affordable. There was slack in the system. Parents could be relatively assured that even with some setbacks, even, with mistakes and bad grades, that a child could generally replicate their upbringing, if not do even better. I mean, the American dream, right, has always been to do better than your parents. But parents today face a different economic reality. We are seeing the first generation that is not doing as well as their parents. We are feeling the deep inequity that's been ushered in over the last several decades, the crush of the middle class, the hyper competition that's been ushered in with globalization. And we are absorbing these macroeconomic forces. And in the words of researchers, becoming social conduits, meaning we are passing these anxiety and fears onto our kids, not to hurt them, but in the hopes that we can prepare them for a competitive and uncertain future. I mean, think about it. The jobs that will be available to our boys when they graduate college, like we don't know what half of those jobs are. And now AI's on the scene. And is that going to take, what is that going to do to careers? So parents are facing very uncertain times. This is not to say parents should be let off the hook and anything goes. This is just to say it's time to stop pointing the finger, blaming parents, personalizing this achievement pressure, and instead take a minute to step back and look at it in the larger context. These pressures are bigger than any one family, any one school, any one community.
Mm-hmm. You write about the principle of scarcity, and we are biologically programmed to recognize scarcity and work against it, work to protect ourselves and our children against it. And that's baked into what you just said, as well as, let's face it, the available college spots for these high-achieving kids, or what you hope will be a high-achieving kid, not just at the top 10 or the Ivy Leagues, but just the whole first and even large portions of the second tier are near impossible to get into, and we know it in a way that it wasn't even 20, 25 years ago.
Let's also talk about how expensive public schools are, education in general. And so many of the parents that I interviewed for this book were solidly middle class, and they were stressed. They wanted their kids to get scholarships so that they could afford college for their kids. So we're not even talking about, like you said, Harvard, Yale. We're not even talking about the top 20 to 30 schools. We're talking about helping our kids get an education, being able to afford it. There's a lot of stress around that today.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, just to put people's minds at ease, your child's not getting into Harvard, Yale, or Princeton. They're not getting in. Okay, just know that going in. Stop ruining their childhoods. They're not getting in. Like, you go through the numbers, it's not just those three. They're not getting into any of the top tier. Just accept it now and stop ruining your kids' upbringing.
And you know what I say to my kids? My son, who's applying to college now this year, I said to him, "Do your best, go for it. But know that it's kind of a lottery at this point. I mean, this is not an indictment of who you are." And I hope that brings a little bit of ease to the situation. Also, the idea, as Frank Bruni wrote in his book, where you go is not who you'll be. So I think having those conversations with our kids, talking about just the numbers, it's a lottery. I mean, and I was not willing, and my husband was not willing to live our family life to get our kids into Harvard, which is now a 3 or 4% acceptance rate. I wasn't willing to do that.
They're all there. The most generous number I saw was Georgetown, which is 12% get in. But every other, I mean, they're all 3%, 4%, 5%. So, I mean, it's just the odds of your child getting into one of these schools. And at what cost? You want to ruin years 0 through 18 so that they can then go and face incredible anxiety and pressure from 18 to 22? Why? Why? I know that I may be the exception, Jenny, but I love to remind people I did go to Syracuse. Then I went to Albany Law School, which, to be charitable to Albany, is a middling law school. It's definitely like third tier at best. And I didn't even go to the communications program at Syracuse, which is a great school. I went poli-sci, which is fine. But I'm just saying, and I guarantee you, I make more money than virtually anybody in my town. It's possible. You can get ahead. You can have a great life. You can have a great marriage. If money's your goal, if success, you can do it by going to a middling school. It just, I think, much more relates to, number one, I was a happy child. I had a family that loved me and made me feel whole. And number two, I spent time thinking, what personality traits do I have that will align with the potential professions in front of me? So I chose wisely. That was the most important. Those two things were the two most important things. You write about this in the book, about how you want your kid to have a successful life, whether it's financial or, friendships and so on. Spend time loving on them. Spend time reinforcing that you see them as a whole person, not just as their GPA.
Exactly right. As you point out with your upbringing, there's a social psychologist at Brown, Gregory Elliott, and he just says so many wise things. And one of the things he wrote was, what gets in early gets in deep. And that to me was so profound. And so I wanted to make sure that, achievement was not going to get into the way of my connection with my kids. And I think what you pointed out were two really strong things. So one is your home was a place where you felt valued unconditionally. And what did that do? That made you reach for things. You weren't likely afraid of setbacks because it was not an indictment of your worth. This was just part of the course. And the other thing you talk about is knowing your strengths. And I write about that a lot in the book. That this is another great quote that I got from Rick Weisbord, who's at Making Caring Common up in Boston. And he says, the self becomes stronger less by being praised than by being known. A lot of the kids that I knew that I interviewed for this book said praise by their parents was just another source of pressure. And what Rick Weisbord was telling me was that the self becomes stronger when we're known for who we are deep at our core, away from our achievements. What are our strengths? Are we tenacious? Do we have a great sense of humor? Do we have a really strong work ethic? These are things that we can see about our kids and we can foster. And those are the very things actually that are going to lead to their success and help them to overcome any setbacks. So I think your 2 points were very astute.
I laughed about it many times. My parents would always say, like, you don't really seem that special so far, but we're open-minded to specialness if it should present itself. And that was fine with me. I was great. Okay, perfect. They used to insult my looks. They didn't say you're ugly. They just said she's going to be with us for a long time. I wasn't offended, Jenny. I didn't care. I'm like, oh, I love my mom and dad. Great, we're going to be together. We're the opposite of all that today. Like, Junior can do no wrong. Junior's brilliant. Junior's gorgeous. Junior's, and like all this messaging, we want, positivity, I guess, but we may be inadvertently setting them up for a standard that is unattainable.
I think that's exactly right. And I think, like you said, I think knowing our kids for who they are makes them feel so valued. It gives them like a protective shield against setbacks. And, a lot of kids are really crumbling under setbacks today.
September marks the end of summer and the beginning of a hectic time for a lot of people, but a great time. Love the fall. It can become difficult to schedule in your fitness goals and also hard to relax after a long, busy, packed day. Consider a Michael Phelps swim spa by Master Spas. These things offer time-saving convenience to work out in your own backyard and also the relaxing therapy of a hot tub to take it easy afterward. Here's how it works. A Michael Phelps swim spa by Master Spas has a water current so you can swim in place and do your favorite aquatic exercises. The water buoyancy relieves pressure on aching joints, and you can enjoy pure relaxation in the massage therapy seats. Michael Phelps swim spas come in a variety of sizes to complement almost any yard, even if it's a small one. Installation can take less than a day. And since it's heated, you can use it year-round in any climate, at the beginning of the fall and all the way through the winter. Michael Phelps swim spas are 100% made in the USA by Master Spas, the world's largest swim spa manufacturer. Go to masterspas.com. Listen to this. This is big. The month of September is Master Spas' global sales event. I have never seen a promo this good. I kid you not. This is real. If you put in the promo code MK, you will save $2,000 on a Michael Phelps swim spa. Unbelievable. And if you put in that promo code MK, you will save $1,000 on a Master Spas hot tub. That's a lot of dough to save on a great product. Masterspas.com, promo code MK. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.